Tonight, our special transmission as two Canadian doctors are providing crucial testimony on atrocities committed by Israeli forces against Palestinian civilians. Assalamu alaikum and good evening. This is Muslim News Canada on Muslim Network TV. I'm Zahra Sayed. It has been 212 days since Israel started targeting Palestinians indiscriminately. Israel has intensified its attacks on Rafah. Palestinian news agency says at least 22 Palestinians have been killed, including 8 children. A school housing displaced people in the center of the Gaza Strip has also been bombed, causing several casualties. In retaliation, Hamas has fired rockets at the Karam Abu Salim border crossing. The attack killed 3 Israeli soldiers and injured 11. In response, Israel has closed an important border crossing. The Israeli police have raided Al Jazeera media office in occupied East Jerusalem. This comes after the Israeli government passed a bill to shut down the network's local operations. Al Jazeera media has documented more than 50 attacks against its journalists since the onset of the war. Before the war, Israeli forces killed veteran Al Jazeera Arabic journalist Shireen Abu Akleh in May 2022. Akleh was reporting from Jenin in the occupied West Bank. Last week, the U.S. stopped a delivery of ammunition destined for Israel. A media report says the move has raised serious concerns within the Israeli government. The death toll from Israel's war is staggering. At the time of writing, at least 34,683 Palestinians have been killed. A report by the United Nations estimates another 8,000 have been buried under the rubble. 78,018 are wounded. Israel's revised death toll from Hamas's attacks stands at 1,139. The BBC reports Hamas has informed Qatari and Egyptian mediators that it has accepted their latest proposal for a Gaza ceasefire and hostage release deal with Israel. The specifics of the truce deal remain unclear. Israel has not responded officially. However, Israeli officials have reportedly cautioned that the proposal was not the one put forward by their country. They say it would likely not be accepted. The proposed deal centers around a temporary pause in fighting lasting several weeks and the release of several dozen hostages. Hamas's announcement comes shortly after the Israeli military instructed Palestinians to evacuate parts of Rafah. The Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant indicated potential preparations for an assault on the city. Rafah is providing refuge to 1.4 million displaced Palestinians. This operation is expected to affect tens of thousands of residents. A Hamas official has labeled the evacuation orders followed by Israeli airstrikes a dangerous escalation. Following Israel's evacuation orders, UN agencies, aid groups, and world leaders have warned of devastating consequences of any military assault on Rafah. The International Criminal Court has condemned threats of retaliation from the Israeli and the U.S. governments. The news comes as reports of potential arrest warrants for Israeli officials are emerging. 2 years ago, the World Court opened an official investigation into allegations of war crimes and crimes against humanity committed in occupied Palestine since 2014. It is not clear what charges the Israeli officials may face. However, Israeli ministers have publicly discussed the rumored indictments. Prime Minister Netanyahu has denounced possible action as a historic scandal. U.S. lawmakers have warned of sanctions against the World Court officials if Israeli leaders face charges. The World Court says its decisions are based on impartiality. It warns of attempts to impede or influence its work. In a statement, the court says issuing threats could constitute an offense under Article 70 of the Rome Statute. Israel is not a member of the International Criminal Court. Experts say, despite this, Israel could face scrutiny as Palestine is a member of the World Court. The World Court acts as a last resort when a member states are unwilling or unable to try heinous crimes themselves. It can prosecute nationals of member states as well as individuals who commit crimes on the territory of member states. Two Canadian doctors who worked in Gaza are providing testimony to international lawyers and investigators. Doctors Yipeng Yi and Ben Thompson are witnesses to horrific scenes of a collapsing healthcare system and atrocities against civilians. They are testifying to the International Criminal Court and UK-based organizations. The doctors witnessed widespread suffering, including malnutrition, untreated injuries, and lack of medical resources due to the Israeli bombings. These doctors are crucial witnesses in building cases against Israel for war crimes. Their testimonies risk their safety. Yi has documented suffering of children from a massive hepatitis A outbreak. He says children in Gaza are suffering from respiratory and gastrointestinal infections, malnutrition, rickets diseases, and burn injuries from fires. Thompson is a general internal medicine doctor working in the Toronto area. He described a Palestinian patient in his 40s with infected wounds on his wrists. He says the wounds were consistent with the wrists being tied tightly. He says there was a deep wound on the back of one of his hands through which his bones could be seen. University campuses worldwide are witnessing demonstrations in support of Palestinians. Protesters are demanding divestment from Israel's supporting companies. The protests extend beyond the US to Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. Over 2,000 arrests have been made in the US alone. In Australia, pro-Palestinian encampments have emerged on the University of Sydney. UK campuses, including Newcastle University, are also hosting protests. Protests in France's Sciences Po and Sorbonne have prompted police action. Students at Jamia Millia Islamia University in India have also joined the pro-Palestinian protesters around the globe. In Canada, McGill University, McMaster University, and University of Toronto are calling for divestment. Lebanese campuses also rally in the movement. Hundreds of students gathered at the American University of Beirut are protesting the war in Gaza. The global movement seeks to amplify the support for Palestinians amid Israel's ongoing aggression. Amnesty International is calling on universities, the government, and law enforcement in Canada to safeguard the right to protest. The call comes amid a surge of student demonstrations across Canada. Amnesty's Secretary General Keti Nivya Bandi says there is a need for safe spaces for dialogue and peaceful protest. She condemns any suppression of free speech or assembly. She says peaceful protests are legal under Canadian and international law. The human rights group says protests play a vital role in holding the ones in power accountable. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has assured Canadians of the rule of law following the arrest of 3 men charged with the murder of a Sikh activist. Hardeep Singh Nijjar was killed in Surrey, British Columbia in June last year. Nijjar was advocating for a separate state of Khalistan for his community in India. His killing caused diplomatic tensions between Canada and India. Trudeau says every Canadian has a right to safety. He condemned discrimination and violence. The arrests come after collaborative efforts between Canadian and US law enforcement. Indian officials have expressed concerns about organized crime links. They are urging Canada to address pro-Khalistan sentiments. The investigation is ongoing. Thank you for watching. Our news is produced by Muslim Network TV, which is a not-for-profit organization. We need your support for donations. Please scan the QR code on our broadcast or visit muslimnetwork.tv to donate now, so we can continue to amplify the voices of Muslims in Canada and abroad. Assalamu alaikum.